The morning air at Fort Jackson was thick with humidity, the kind that clung to your skin and seeped through uniforms before the sun had fully risen. Soldiers moved briskly across the compound, boots pounding against the asphalt, their shouts and laughter echoing between barracks. For most, it was another predictable day of training, drills, and paperwork. But for Private First Class Amanda Brooks, this day carried a weight she hadn't expected. Her name had been called out in formation, a sergeant's voice cutting through the muggy air. "Brooks, Gate 2. You're on gate duty all week." A ripple of chuckles moved through the line. One soldier whispered loud enough for others to hear, "Guess someone ticked off the wrong person." Another muttered, "Babysitting the driveway. Real tough work." Amanda kept her chin high, refusing to let her face betray the sting. She knew the reputation gate duty carried. It was seen as the punishment post-hours of standing in the heat, checking IDs, logging vehicles, and wading through traffic. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't heroic, and most soldiers treated it as little more than a chore. But Amanda didn't laugh. She never did. Growing up on a farm in western Kansas, she had learned early that responsibility wasn't about recognition. Her father used to tell her, "The chores no one wants to do are usually the ones that matter most." While her brothers had groaned about mucking stalls or checking fences, Amanda had done the work quietly, without complaint. She understood that survival often depended on the things others overlooked, the quiet vigilance of making sure water lines worked, or that a fence kept predators out at night. That perspective never left her. When she arrived at Gate 2, the place was already buzzing with activity. Civilian contractors filed in with toolboxes and equipment. Trucks rumbled past carrying supplies, and soldiers on rotation saluted lazily as they entered. The air smelled of hot asphalt, diesel exhaust, and freshly cut grass. 2 MPs stood nearby, chatting about last night's football game, barely glancing at the cars that rolled past. Amanda adjusted her Kevlar, tightened her grip on her rifle, and stepped into position. Her orders were simple: check IDs, monitor traffic, and keep logs. But in her mind, it was more than that. She studied every detail: license plates, decals, body language. If a badge was clipped upside down, she wrote it down. If a driver avoided eye contact, she noted it. Even the way salutes were given caught her attention. Was it sharp and practiced, or lazy and uncertain? To her, these weren't small quirks. They were signals. Her sergeant had rolled his eyes when she turned in her first report. Pages filled with observations others would have dismissed as paranoia. "Brooks," he said with a grin, "this is gate duty, not an FBI surveillance op. Lighten up." But Amanda didn't lighten up. She believed no post was too small to matter. As the hours passed, the sun climbed higher, and sweat trickled down her back. Vehicles kept coming. A delivery truck carried crates of equipment, and she double-checked its manifest against the driver's credentials. A sedan with 3 young soldiers pulled up, music thumping, windows down. She noticed the one in the passenger seat had a new tattoo peeking from under his sleeve. She wrote it down. Her notebook became her weapon, her eyes her shield. Amanda remembered her mother's words before she left for basic training. "The Army will try to make you fit into a mold. Don't lose the things that make you different." She clung to that. Where others saw gate duty as drudgery, she saw opportunity. Every interaction was a puzzle. Every ID was a test. She didn't know what she was preparing for, but she trusted her instincts that someday it would matter. That trust would prove vital. By midday, traffic slowed, and Amanda finally had a chance to sip from her canteen. A convoy of Humvees rolled through, dust kicking up from the tires. Soldiers inside nodded lazily as she waved them past. She noticed one driver's eyes lingered on her longer than usual, a faint smirk tugging at his lips, as though amused that someone so young and fresh-faced was guarding the gate. Amanda ignored it, focusing instead on the pattern of vehicles. Everything had a rhythm, and when the rhythm broke, she noticed. Later that afternoon, a contractor's van approached. The man behind the wheel wore a hard-hat, reflective vest, and displayed the proper badge. But something gnawed at her. His vest was spotless, too spotless for someone supposedly working construction. She leaned forward, studying him. His hands were calloused, yes, but his eyes. They flicked nervously from side to side. "Morning, sir. Mind rolling down the back window for me?" Amanda asked calmly. The man hesitated. Only a second, but long enough. Finally, he complied, revealing toolboxes and equipment piled neatly. Amanda nodded, waved him through, and logged the detail in her notebook. Vest looks new. Driver nervous. Most would have forgotten the interaction within minutes. Amanda didn't. She filed it away in her memory, another piece of the puzzle she was assembling in silence. That night, lying on her bunk, she opened the notebook and reviewed the day's entries. Each line, each observation, was a thread weaving into something larger. She didn't know what pattern would emerge, but she believed every stitch mattered. The other soldiers teased her mercilessly. "Writing love notes in that thing, Brooks?" One asked with a grin. Another laughed. "Careful, she's probably got your shoe size written down." Amanda only smiled faintly and returned to her writing. She didn't care if they laughed. She cared about being ready. Because deep down, she felt it, the sense that something was coming. The army had been on heightened alert for weeks. Whispers of foreign operatives probing defenses, testing vulnerabilities. The chatter reached even the lower ranks, though details were scarce. And Amanda Brooks, the soldier punished with gate duty, would soon find herself at the epicenter of it all. What began as a joke assignment would turn into the single most defining moment of her career. And it all started with that notebook. The sun rose higher, burning through the morning haze and baking the asphalt until it shimmered like glass. By now, 8-2 was in full swing, a steady stream of cars, trucks, and military vehicles pushing through. For most guards, it was routine: wave, glance, wave, repeat. But Amanda Brooks didn't treat it that way. Every arrival was a new story, every driver a riddle to solve. Her eyes scanned each ID card like they were pages from a classified file. Was the photo crisp or slightly smudged? Were the laminates smooth or frayed? Was the uniform tucked with pride or carelessly thrown together? Her notebook filled quickly. 10:12 a.m. Driver badge clipped upside down. Young soldier, looked nervous when corrected. 10:37 a.m. Civilian contractor's van. Plates slightly dented. Waved too casually. Didn't look me in the eye. 11:05 a.m. Sedan with 3 privates. Passenger saluted wrong hand first. Laughed when corrected. Most people would consider these things trivial. Amanda considered them clues. "Brooks, you trying to write a novel in there?" One of the MPs teased as she scribbled notes during a lull in traffic. He leaned against the guard booth, arms crossed, smirk plastered on his face. Amanda didn't look up. "Just doing my job. Your job is to wave cars through, not play detective." He chuckled, shaking his head. "Relax. Nothing ever happens here." Amanda glanced at him briefly, her expression unreadable. That's what everyone thinks before something does happen. The MP rolled his eyes, muttering something under his breath about rookies taking things too seriously. But Amanda tuned him out. She wasn't here to win approval. She was here to guard the gate, and in her mind, that meant guarding the entire base. The base itself was alive with its own rhythm. Trucks rattled by with equipment, their engines growling. Contractors hauled toolboxes, laughing among themselves. Soldiers returning from training pulled up in groups, windows down, music blaring. Amanda noted every detail: their moods, their uniforms, the condition of their vehicles. To her, this wasn't background noise. It was a pattern. And she knew patterns told stories. She remembered her father's lessons vividly. He had taught her that when tending livestock, the smallest irregularities mattered. A calf standing alone, a horse drinking less water than usual, a coyote's tracks just outside the fence line, all signs of something bigger if you paid attention. That was how you prevented disasters before they began. At Gate 2, she applied the same principle. Midday brought a rush of traffic. Contractors' vans, food deliveries, fuel trucks all cleared through with flashing badges and routine checks. Amanda caught the faint glint of sweat on one driver's forehead, despite the van's air conditioning. She asked him a few extra questions, just to see how he answered. His responses came quickly, too quickly, rehearsed. She jotted it down. Driver rehearsed answers. Possible nerves. Another soldier in a pickup truck pulled up, music blasting classic rock. He offered a sloppy salute, grinning like he owned the place. Amanda studied him carefully before waving him through. Later, her partner laughed. What's the point of writing all that junk down? You think that guy's secretly a spy? Amanda didn't argue. She simply wrote another line in her notebook. Overconfidence can be as suspicious as fear. It wasn't that she believed every soldier or contractor was a threat. It was that she understood threats rarely announced themselves openly. They slipped through in plain sight, hiding behind normalcy. If everyone else relaxed, she would not. By early afternoon, the heat had grown unbearable. Sweat trickled down Amanda's temples, her uniform damp. She stayed sharp regardless, scanning every badge, every license plate, every salute. She caught the tiniest inconsistencies others dismissed as nothing. That was when the black van arrived. The driver wore the standard reflective vest and hardhat. His ID was valid, photo-matched, everything in order. But something tugged at Amanda's instincts. His vest looked brand new, too clean for a man supposedly working construction. His eyes flicked nervously toward her partner, then back at the road. Amanda leaned down slightly, peering into the back of the van. Mind rolling down the rear window for me? She asked. The driver hesitated. Only for a second, but it was enough. Then he forced a smile and complied. Toolboxes and equipment filled the back, stacked neatly. Nothing seemed out of place. Still, Amanda's instincts screamed. She jotted it down the moment the van rolled past. Driver too clean. Vest brand new. Nervous. Tools arranged too neatly. Her partner shook his head in disbelief. You're seriously writing that down? Brooks, you're wound tighter than a drum. This is just gate duty. You'll drive yourself crazy. Amanda snapped her notebook shut. Or maybe I'll catch something before anyone else does. Her tone was calm, but inside her mind was a storm. She couldn't shake the feeling that the van, and others like it, weren't as ordinary as they appeared. That night, as she sat on her bunk under the dim light of the barracks, Amanda flipped through her notebook. Each page held rows of observations, small details stacked like puzzle pieces, waiting to connect. She didn't know how, but she knew they mattered. Her fellow soldiers teased her as usual. Careful with that thing, Brooks, one joked, pointing at the notebook. You'll end up writing us all into some spy thriller. Another chimed in, laughing. Nah, she's probably writing love poems about the guys driving trucks. Amanda smiled faintly, closed the notebook, and slid it under her pillow. Their laughter didn't bother her. What mattered was the unease she couldn't shake, the sense that beneath the routine hum of the bass, something was out of tune. The army had been on heightened alert for weeks. Whispers floated through the ranks about suspicious activity, foreign operatives, and intelligence chatter that hinted at probing attempts against U.S. installations. Details were scarce, but Amanda didn't need specifics. She could feel it in her bones. Something was coming. And if it came through her gate, she would be ready. For the others, Gate 2 was a joke. For Amanda Brooks, it was a front line. And front lines demanded vigilance. By late afternoon, Amanda Brooks knew the rhythm of Gate 2 better than she knew the sound of her own heartbeat. Cars came and went like clockwork, each with its own quirks and patterns. A sloppy salute here, a nervous chuckle there. She had spent the entire day weaving those details into a silent web inside her mind. That was why, when the black SUV appeared at the edge of the lane, her instincts stirred like a tripwire. It rolled forward slowly, polished to a mirror shine. Its engine purred smooth, too smooth, unlike the rough growl of most government vehicles. Sunlight glared off its tinted windows, hiding the occupants like shadows behind glass. Amanda felt her shoulders tighten beneath her uniform. Something about it broke the rhythm of the gate, like a wrong note in a familiar song. Her partner barely looked up. Another contractor, probably. Rich guys love these things. He waved lazily. Amanda didn't wave. She stepped forward. The SUV eased to a stop. The driver lowered his window with mechanical precision, as if rehearsed. He wore the right uniform, neat and pressed, insignia correct, boots polished. His ID badge slid out smoothly, fingers steady at first glance. But Amanda saw the tremor, the faint, betraying twitch in his hand. She took the badge, eyes flicking over it once, twice. Everything appeared correct. The hologram shimmered properly, the barcode aligned, the photo matched. To anyone else, it was flawless. To Amanda, it was too flawless. "Afternoon, Private," the driver said, his voice practiced. Polite, calm. His smile was quick, but didn't reach his eyes. Amanda glanced at him, then past him. In the back seat sat a man in sunglasses. He didn't move, didn't nod, didn't even pretend to scroll on a phone like most passengers. His body was stiff, jaw clenched, posture military. He was waiting for something. What? Amanda couldn't tell. But his stillness screamed louder than words. The driver cleared his throat, eager. "Everything in order?" Amanda didn't answer right away. She scanned the badge again, tilting it slightly to catch the light. She was buying time, her pulse hammering. Her training told her everything was normal. Her instincts told her nothing was. Her partner groaned softly. "Come on, Brooks, just wave them through." Amanda ignored him. She remembered her father's words. Predators don't announce themselves. They slip in when you're not watching. She leaned slightly toward the passenger. "Sir, can I see your ID as well?" The man in sunglasses shifted his jaw, but didn't speak. Instead, he slowly reached into his jacket. The movement was controlled, deliberate, but Amanda felt her muscles coil. He produced a badge, handing it forward without a word. Amanda took it, holding it beside the driver's. Again, both checked out. Again, everything was right. And yet, something in the air buzzed. Her gut wouldn't let go. She glanced back at the driver. He was avoiding her eyes now, staring at the booth ahead, as if already imagining himself past the gate. His hand tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles whitening. Amanda's fingers brushed her belt, where her radio rested. She didn't speak into it yet. Instead, she gave a subtle hand signal to the armed MP stationed 10 feet away. A tiny gesture, practiced in drills but rarely used. The guard's head snapped up. He recognized it instantly. The driver's jaw clenched. His smile flickered. "Is there a problem?" Amanda's heart hammered, but her voice stayed even. "Just a routine inspection, sir. Won't take a moment." She stepped back slightly, motioning for the SUV to pull into the secondary inspection lane. The driver hesitated. It was only for a second, but hesitation at a gate was like a thunderclap. Amanda's instincts screamed, "There it is." "Sir, secondary inspection," she repeated firmly. The driver exhaled sharply, the kind of breath someone takes before a fight. Then, almost reluctantly, he shifted the gear and steered the SUV toward the inspection zone. Amanda's hand hovered near her rifle strap as she walked alongside, every nerve alive. The passenger hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, but she could feel his gaze like heat through the tinted glass. Behind her, her partner muttered under his breath, "You're overreacting." But Amanda knew she wasn't. Something was about to happen. The SUV stopped in the inspection zone. Amanda held her posture, eyes sharp, senses tuned to the smallest twitch. The driver's door clicked open slowly, deliberately. And in that moment, Amanda realized the day's rhythm had ended. Whatever was coming next would shatter the quiet forever. She studied the driver's movements, her mind cataloging every second. His boots hit the asphalt with a solid thud. His uniform still looked perfect. But his face betrayed him. Sweat beaded across his brow, despite the cool interior he had just left. His eyes darted left and right, scanning exits, calculating distances. Amanda kept her voice calm, steady. "Step away from the vehicle, please." The driver swallowed hard. He forced a nod, but his feet shifted uneasily, betraying the tension coiled in his muscles. He wasn't calm. He was waiting for something. The passenger hadn't moved. He sat in silence, rigid, his head tilted slightly downward. But Amanda saw his jaw flex, a tiny clench, a soldier still. He was timing something, counting seconds. Amanda's hand signal had already set events in motion. She knew backup was moving, that armed MPs were quietly converging on her location. She had bought herself a thin shield of security, but the thinness terrified her. If her instincts were wrong, she'd look like a paranoid rookie. If they were right, she was standing inches from disaster. Her radio crackled softly. Secondary inspection acknowledged. Backup en route. Amanda exhaled slowly, grounding herself. This was no longer gate duty. This was combat in disguise. She looked at the driver, whose trembling hands betrayed the calm uniform he wore. She looked at the silent passenger, still as stone, but coiled like a spring. And she realized the truth she had felt all along. These men weren't here to pass through. They were here to get in. And it was her job to stop them. Amanda Brooks felt time slow. The driver's boots hit the asphalt, his every move measured, deliberate. His smile had evaporated. All that remained was the nervous twitch of his hands and the shifting weight of a man preparing for something other than compliance. "Step away from the vehicle," she ordered again, her voice flat and firm, the way drill instructors had taught her. The driver nodded faintly, but the moment he shifted his foot, something metallic clinked against the pavement. It was sharp, unmistakable, the sound of metal meeting asphalt. A pistol. The driver froze. Amanda's eyes snapped to the weapon lying between them, gleaming in the harsh sun. The backup MP 10 feet away cursed loudly, unslinging his rifle. Soldiers at the nearby booth shouted. The world erupted into chaos. But Amanda didn't flinch. Her rifle was up in an instant, her stance solid, her breathing controlled. Her heart pounded like a drum, but her training held steady. The driver's hands shot skyward, his voice cracking. "Wait, wait. It's not hands where I can see them." Amanda barked. Her tone cut sharper than a blade. "Now." The driver obeyed, palms trembling as he raised them. Then, out of the corner of her eye, Amanda saw movement. The passenger door swung open. The man in sunglasses exploded from the SUV like a predator unchained. He sprinted hard, faster than Amanda thought possible. boots hammering against the pavement, his body cutting a straight line toward the open gate. "Runner!" Someone screamed. Amanda didn't hesitate. She pivoted, rifle tracking smoothly, her voice booming. "Stop!" On the ground. But the man didn't stop. He pumped his arms, his strides long and powerful. For a heartbeat, Amanda wondered if he would make it. If he slipped past the barrier, the base was exposed. Her finger rested on the trigger, pressure measured. She saw the angle of his run, the muscles coiling in his legs, the desperate determination in every movement. She had a single choice: pull the trigger, or risk him breaching the perimeter. Her mind snapped into clarity. This wasn't a drill. This wasn't gate duty. This was war at the doorstep. "Stop!" Amanda roared again, her voice filled with steel. The runner faltered, just slightly. Maybe it was her tone. Maybe it was the sudden realization that the young private wasn't bluffing. He glanced back, eyes hidden behind his sunglasses, his chest heaving. That hesitation cost him everything. In that heartbeat, backup arrived in force. Sirens wailed, vehicles screeched to a halt, and armed MPs surged from both sides. They closed the distance in seconds, tackling the runner hard against the pavement. The sunglasses flew from his face, skittering across the asphalt. Amanda kept her rifle trained, her breathing steady, her sights locked. She didn't lower her weapon until she saw zip ties binding his wrists. Only then did she step back, her pulse thundering in her ears. The driver was already pinned, face pressed against the hood of the SUV, his arms wrenched behind his back. MPS shouted commands, securing the scene. The pistol lay untouched on the ground, glinting like a sinister reminder of how close they had come. For a moment, silence fell. The kind of silence that comes after chaos, heavy and suffocating. Amanda stood in the middle of it, her rifle lowered, but her body still coiled like a spring. She swallowed hard, the dryness in her throat impossible to ignore. Her palms were damp against the grip of her weapon. Her partner stared at her, wide-eyed, shock written across his face. "Brooks, you..." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Everyone had seen it. It was Amanda who noticed the signs. Amanda who raised the alarm. Amanda who stood her ground when others dismissed her instincts. The gate was secure because she refused to treat it like a joke. Within minutes, the scene was a hive of activity. The SUV was surrounded, its contents pulled out and searched meticulously. Radios buzzed with chatter, officers barked orders, and the sound of Velcro straps tearing echoed as gear was stripped from the captured men. Amanda stood to the side, her notebook still tucked in her pocket, watching every detail. She heard the words: encrypted phones, false IDs, intel drives. Each phrase confirmed what her gut had screamed all along. This wasn't random. This was a coordinated breach attempt. Her sergeant stormed onto the scene, his face red from both heat and disbelief. He scanned the area before his eyes landed on Amanda. "Brooks," he barked, "what the hell happened here?" Amanda snapped to attention. "Attempted infiltration, Sergeant. One armed suspect detained, one runner intercepted. Secondary inspection confirmed irregularities." The sergeant's expression flickered anger, shock, then something closer to respect. He looked at the captured men, then back at Amanda. For once, he had no joke ready. As the adrenaline drained, Amanda finally felt her hands begin to shake. She flexed her fingers, trying to steady them. The reality of what had just happened settled over her like a weight. She could still hear the clink of the pistol hitting the pavement. Still see the runner's desperate sprint toward the gate. Still feel the cold line of decision running through her, whether to fire or not. She had chosen restraint, but she had also chosen strength. The MPs gave her nods as they passed, their eyes carrying something unspoken, respect. Not the hollow kind soldiers gave rookies to make them feel included. Real respect, the kind earned in fire. Amanda didn't smile. She didn't speak. She only gripped her rifle a little tighter and reminded herself of her mother's words. Don't lose the things that make you different. She hadn't, and it had saved them all. Hours later, after the SUV was towed, the prisoners secured, and the gate cleared again, Amanda found herself back at her post. Traffic resumed, almost surreal in its normalcy. Soldiers waved, cars passed, and life went on. But the eyes that looked at her now were different. Where once there had been smirks and dismissive nods, there was silence, acknowledgement. Her partner leaned against the booth, still shaken. He muttered, almost to himself, "I can't believe you caught that." Amanda kept her gaze forward, her voice even. "It's our job." "No," he said, shaking his head. "It was your job. You saw it when the rest of us didn't." Amanda didn't respond. She simply opened her notebook, flipped to a fresh page, and began writing. Because to her, the work wasn't done. The gate wasn't just a road. It was the front line. And until the shift ended, vigilance was her weapon. And she would not lower it. By the time the gate returned to routine, the incident had already taken on a life of its own. Soldiers walking past whispered into radios, text messages flew across units, and every pair of boots seemed to carry the story a little farther. Some private caught a runner at the main gate. She didn't even flinch when the weapon dropped. They say she froze the whole damn line with just her voice. Rumors spread faster than gunfire. Amanda Brooks didn't care. She stood at her post, weapon at the ready, eyes scanning each vehicle. To her, the gate was still the gate. Duty didn't end just because her instincts had been right. But she couldn't ignore the looks. Where once there had been smirks and casual nods, now there were stares of curiosity, of appraisal. Some nodded slowly, as if reassessing her entirely. Others simply avoided her gaze, ashamed of having laughed before. Her partner shifted uneasily beside her. Finally, he muttered, "You know, the whole base is going to hear about this before dinner." Amanda kept her voice level. "Doesn't matter. What matters is the breach didn't happen." But inside, she felt a flicker of unease. Not pride, never that. Something heavier. Responsibility. By early afternoon, Amanda's relief arrived. She turned over her post, double-checked her logbook, and signed off. As she slung her rifle, a corporal appeared, stiff-backed and expressionless. "Private Brooks," he said. "You're wanted at headquarters. Now." The walk across base was long and silent. Amanda marched beside the corporal, her boots hitting the concrete with precise rhythm. She refused to let her nerves show, but every step reminded her that she was being summoned not as a soldier in trouble, but as a soldier who had stopped trouble. At headquarters, she was ushered into a small room. The blinds were closed. A recorder sat on the table. A major she didn't recognize leaned forward, hands clasped. "Sit, Private," Amanda obeyed. The major wasted no time. "Walk me through what you saw." Her training kicked in. She described the SUV, the mismatched paperwork, the driver's nervous movements, the metallic clink of the pistol. She detailed the runner, his sprint toward the gate, her commands, and the subsequent takedown. Her voice was steady, every fact delivered like an entry in her notebook. The major scribbled notes, then looked up. "You didn't fire?" "No, sir." "Why?" Amanda met his gaze without flinching. "Because the runner hesitated. Because backup was already closing in. Because firing was not necessary when my voice stopped him first." The major studied her for a long moment, then leaned back. "You understand, most soldiers in your place would have panicked. Or they would have fired. You didn't." Amanda didn't respond. She didn't need to. The major nodded slowly. Dismissed. Back in the barracks, the whispers had already reached her door. Her bunkmates stared as she entered, their conversations halting mid-sentence. One finally asked, "Is it true? Did you really stop an infiltrator?" Amanda set her rifle down carefully. "I did my job." That night, she couldn't sleep. Her body lay still, but her mind replayed the clink of the pistol, the surge of adrenaline, the runner's sprint. She turned over in her bunk, her notebook clutched tightly in her hand. She opened it in the dim light and wrote, line by line, every detail she remembered. Not for recognition, not for reports, for herself, to make sense of it. The words on the page steadied her. Pay attention. Never assume. Trust what you see, not what they say. It was the same lesson she'd carried from home, the one her mother had drilled into her since childhood. And now it had proven right. 2 days later, she was back at the gate. The SUV was long gone, the suspects transferred elsewhere, but Amanda felt the weight of unseen eyes on her. A convoy rolled in, Humvees painted in desert tan. At the head of the line sat a vehicle, unlike the rest blacked-out windows, flags fixed to the front. Her partner muttered, "That's command staff." Amanda stiffened. As the vehicle stopped, the rear door opened. Out stepped a man whose face she had seen only in briefings and photographs, the SEAL commander himself. Tall, broad-shouldered, his uniform sharp as steel, he moved with the calm authority of someone who had seen more battles than most would ever read about. The chatter around the gate stilled. Soldiers straightened instinctively. The commander's eyes scanned the checkpoint. Then they fell on Amanda. He didn't sneer. He didn't look past her the way others had. Instead, he stopped, boots planted firmly, and gave a crisp, deliberate nod. It wasn't just acknowledgement. It was respect. Amanda returned the gesture, her spine rigid, her rifle slung at perfect angle. The convoy rolled forward. The moment lasted only seconds, but for Amanda, it etched itself deeper than any medal. Because respect from a peer was one thing, but respect from someone like him was validation of everything she had fought to prove. That evening, her sergeant called her into the office. His voice lacked its usual edge. "You'll be hearing from higher soon," he said gruffly. "They want to know more about what you did. Don't let it get to your head." Amanda nodded once. "Yes, Sergeant." But as she walked back out into the fading light, she realized something had shifted. The base no longer saw her as the rookie dumped at the gate as a joke. They saw her as the soldier who had caught what no one else did. And in the world of soldiers, reputation was everything. Amanda Brooks had just earned hers. The base never stayed quiet for long. Within 3 days, the story of Amanda Brooks was no longer a rumor, but a headline inside the walls of the installation. Soldiers repeated her name in chow halls, officers dissected her decision in meetings, and her shift at the gate had become a legend retold with new details each time. She froze a man in place with just her voice. She saw the fake paperwork before anyone else. She almost dropped the runner herself. Amanda kept her head down, refusing to feed the chatter. But she noticed. Everyone noticed. Admiration came first. Younger soldiers nodded to her in the mess line. A corporal she barely knew clapped her on the shoulder, muttering, "Damn fine work, Private." Her squad mates who once teased her mercilessly suddenly fell silent when she entered the room. But resentment followed quickly behind. "Lucky break," one soldier sneered when he thought she couldn't hear. "Gate duty's a joke, and she got a free medal out of it. She didn't even fire." Anyone could have yelled. Amanda heard it all. She didn't respond, but every word sank like lead in her chest. She had faced down an armed infiltrator, yet it was jealousy that bit hardest. Her notebook filled with observations. Who respected her, who didn't, who watched her closely when she wasn't looking. She didn't write their names for revenge. She wrote them as reminders. In the military, perception could be as dangerous as bullets. One morning, she was summoned again. This time, it wasn't to a small room with a single officer. It was to a conference hall where half a dozen men and women in uniform sat waiting. Amanda entered stiffly, saluted, and stood at attention. A colonel adjusted his glasses. "Private Brooks, you've drawn attention from higher command. Your actions at the gate have been reviewed thoroughly. Some commend your restraint. Others," he paused, eyeing her carefully, "suggest it was luck." Amanda's pulse remained steady, her eyes fixed forward. The colonel continued, "We don't operate on luck. We operate on skill, discipline, and judgment. Which means we need to know if what you displayed was instinct or accident." He gestured. A major leaned forward. "We're assigning you additional duty. Think of it as evaluation. You'll rotate into high-risk inspections, shadow intelligence officers during sweeps, and provide input during security drills." "Understood?" "Yes, sir," Amanda said, her voice even. The next weeks blurred into tests. At a hangar checkpoint, she spotted a supply truck with mismatched manifests before anyone else. The driver tried to talk fast, but Amanda calmly compared every line, finding the inconsistency hidden in jargon. The truck was seized for inspection. Inside were unsecured crates of live ammunition that had been misplaced. At a warehouse sweep, she noticed footprints in dust near a supposedly sealed side door. Others had walked past without looking. Inside, investigators later discovered evidence of tampering. During a simulated breach drill, Amanda held her ground when intruders rushed past her, refusing to be distracted by decoys. She identified the real infiltrator hidden at the back of the group, pulling him aside before he reached the inner compound. Each time, officers scribbled notes. Each time, Amanda's peers stared, some in awe, others in irritation. Her sergeant shook his head one night. "Brooks, you've gone from gate joke to everyone's favorite experiment. Careful, you shine too bright, and someone will want to dim you." Amanda only nodded. She already knew. Recognition brought change in subtle ways. At the range, soldiers who once dismissed her began asking for tips on breathing techniques and focus. In patrol briefings, her name was called for roles she had never been considered for before. Even her partner at the gate, once impatient with her careful eye, now studied her methods, writing notes of his own. But not all shifts were welcome. In the barracks, one bunkmate muttered loud enough for her to hear, "She thinks she's special now, just because she got lucky once." Amanda didn't rise to it. She tightened her boots, tied her hair back, and walked out without a word. Her silence unnerved them more than anger ever could. One late evening, Amanda returned to her bunk to find an envelope on her pillow. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Not everyone's your friend. Watch your back. No name. No signature. Just a warning." She folded the paper and slid it into her notebook, between her written observations. She didn't show anyone. She didn't speak of it. She only wrote beneath it, "Threats can be louder than bullets if you let them." The real test came unexpectedly. A visiting convoy arrived late at night, supposedly cleared already by outside checkpoints. Officers waved it through, trusting the paperwork. Amanda, standing nearby as part of her rotation, felt a ripple of unease. The manifest was too neat, the times too precise. "Private, it's been cleared," an officer said sharply when she lingered. But Amanda stepped forward, her voice firm. "Requesting secondary inspection, sir." The officer frowned but gave a curt nod. Inside one of the vehicles, hidden beneath tarps, were crates of advanced electronics marked for classified projects. The serials were wrong. The equipment wasn't logged anywhere. The room fell silent. Then chaos erupted: calls, investigations, furious officers demanding answers. Amanda stood still, her hands folded behind her back. It wasn't luck. It was vigilance. Again. That night, Amanda sat alone under dim light, writing in her notebook. She recorded the convoy, the paperwork, the crates. But more than that, she recorded her realization. Respect didn't come from one moment. It came from proving yourself again and again, even when others doubted you. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Don't lose the things that make you different. Amanda smiled faintly as she wrote. She hadn't lost them. She had sharpened them. And now she knew this was only the beginning. The base slept under a pale sliver of moon, but Amanda Brooks didn't. She was on late rotation, her boots crunching against the gravel path near the perimeter fence. The night air was still, yet her instincts hummed with unease. Patrols were supposed to be routine, but she had learned to distrust the word routine. 2 weeks had passed since she caught the suspicious convoy. Respect came from some, resentment from others. She carried both like armor. Every nod in the chow hall, every muttered insult in the barracks reminded her. Eyes were always on her now. But tonight, eyes weren't the problem. It was shadows. A distant thud rattled the stillness. Subtle, muffled, but real. Amanda froze, tilting her head. To anyone else, it might have been dismissed as wind, as a loose container door slamming in the night. But Amanda knew better. She'd learned to listen. She crouched, fingertips brushing the earth. The vibration lingered faintly, too deliberate, too heavy. She whispered into her radio. Sector 3. Possible disturbance. Investigating. Static crackled. Then a dismissive reply. Copy, private. Probably nothing. Maintain route. Amanda bit the inside of her cheek. Probably nothing had nearly let infiltrators through once before. She wouldn't ignore it. She veered from the designated path, moving low and quiet toward the sound. At the far edge of the fence, she saw it. A small section of chain link peeled back, bent outward at the base. Fresh, the metal edges glinted faintly under the moonlight. No soldier on patrol would have missed it if it had been there before. Amanda's pulse spiked. She keyed her radio again. Breach confirmed. Sector 3. Repeat, breach confirmed. This time, the reply was sharp. Hold position. Reinforcements inbound. But as she crouched, eyes scanning, she realized reinforcements would come too late. Movement flickered beyond the fence. Figures 3, maybe 4, slipping low through the shadows, carrying equipment. They weren't just testing the fence. They were already inside. Amanda raised her rifle, her training aligning perfectly with instinct. Halt! Drop your equipment, she commanded, her voice slicing through the night. The intruders froze. For a heartbeat, silence ruled. Then chaos erupted. One bolted left, diving for cover. Another yanked something metallic from his pack. The third and fourth dropped their gear and sprinted toward the interior, fast and reckless. Amanda didn't hesitate. She fired a warning burst overhead, the muzzle flash illuminating the night like lightning. Down, now! Her shots echoed across the compound. Sirens began to wail, distant but growing. The intruders didn't stop. Amanda pivoted, tracking the two runners. They were closing the distance toward a storage hangar, one that housed classified equipment she'd helped inspect days before. If they reached it, they could sabotage more than anyone realized. She sprinted forward, rifle steady, heart hammering. Her voice roared again. Stop or I fire. One runner stumbled at her tone, tripping over loose gravel. The other pushed harder, desperate. Amanda drew a bead, her finger tightening on the trigger. She didn't want to fire. But she knew what would happen if she didn't. She exhaled, squeezed. The crack split the night. The runner collapsed, leg struck clean. He screamed, rolling across the ground. Amanda moved fast, pressing her boot to his weapon hand and wrenching it free. The other runner was already being swarmed by arriving MPs. Amanda had stopped the breach. Again, the aftermath unfolded in controlled chaos. MPs poured in, sirens blaring, orders shouted into radios. The intruders were pinned, their equipment seized. Amanda stood over the man she had shot, her rifle still trained until zip ties bound his wrists. The commanding officer on scene, a captain with a stern jaw, approached her directly. "Who fired?" Amanda snapped to attention. "Private Brooks, sir." The captain's eyes flicked to the wounded intruder, then back to her. "You acted under protocol?" "Yes, sir. I issued commands twice." Warning burst given. Target continued advance. The captain studied her, then gave a single sharp nod. Good work. By dawn, the story had already spread like wildfire. Some said Amanda had single-handedly held back 4 infiltrators. Others, she'd hunted them like prey. The truth, her clear voice, her warning burst, her decisive shot, was already bending into legend. In the mess hall, soldiers stared openly as she entered. Some eyes gleamed with admiration, others with unease. But none carried the smirk of dismissal anymore. Her partner from the gate shook his head slowly at her. "Brooks, you're going to be a ghost story one day. Don't mess around at the gate, or she'll catch you." Amanda allowed the faintest hint of a smile. Good. Let them think that. But beneath the admiration, resentment sharpened. She overheard whispers. "She's making the rest of us look incompetent. She's trying too hard to prove herself. One more stunt like this, and Command'll think she's the only soldier worth trusting." The words didn't sting the way they once had. Amanda only wrote them down in her notebook that night, beneath the day's events. Respect divides. Some lift you higher. Some try to pull you down. She closed the book, her decision clear. She would not bend. Later that week, she was summoned again. This time, not by officers, not by sergeants, by the SEAL commander himself. When Amanda entered his office, he stood, arms folded, studying her silently. "You've made noise," he said finally, his voice gravelly but measured. "Some think you're lucky. Some think you're reckless. Others think you're the sharpest pair of eyes on this base." Amanda held his gaze. "I only do my duty, sir." The commander nodded slowly. Then he leaned closer. "Good, because duty's about to demand more of you than you realize." The SEAL commander's words echoed in Amanda's mind long after she left his office. Duty's about to demand more of you than you realize. She didn't know what he meant until the next evening, when a knock rattled her barracks door. "Private Brooks," a lieutenant said crisply. "You've been reassigned. Temporary attachment to Special Operations Command. Gear up, now," whispers erupted as Amanda slung her rifle and followed him out. Soldiers craned their necks, some in awe, others with narrowed eyes. She felt the weight of their stares pressing against her back. This wasn't routine anymore. This was something else entirely. She was escorted to a briefing room deep inside headquarters. Maps covered the walls. Red markers circled key areas across the base. At the center stood the SEAL commander himself, flanked by his staff. When Amanda entered, he gestured for her to step forward. "Private Brooks," he began, his voice carrying the quiet authority of a man who'd lived through decades of fire. "We've had infiltration attempts. You've caught them not once, but twice. We need to know how deep this goes. Tonight, we're running an operation. You're part of it." Amanda blinked, but her voice didn't waver. "Yes, sir." The commander studied her, his eyes sharp. I don't bring rookies into my circle. But you're not a rookie anymore. You see what others don't, and I want those eyes where I can use them. The mission unfolded quickly. A convoy was set to arrive under cover of night, supposedly carrying secure communications equipment. Intelligence hinted that hostile operatives would try to slip in alongside it, disguised as contractors. Amanda's role was simple. On paper, she was to observe, inspect, and flag anything suspicious. The SEALs would handle the rest. But Amanda knew nothing about this was simple. One mistake, one overlooked deal, and the base could be compromised. Her notebook was tucked into her vest. She wouldn't need to write tonight. Tonight, her instincts would have to write for her. The convoy arrived just past midnight. Trucks rumbled through the outer checkpoint, headlights glaring, engines loud against the silence of the desert night. Contractors in reflective vests shouted, waved papers, and unloaded equipment. Amanda stood at the inner gate, the SEAL commander only a few steps behind her. His presence was heavy, like a shadow that demanded perfection. She forced her breathing steady, scanning each face, each movement. At first, everything seemed in order. Badges matched. Paperwork aligned. The men laughed casually as they unloaded, but Amanda's gut tightened. Something was off. She looked again. One of the contractors carried himself differently. His vest was unzipped, his boots laced military tight, unlike the others. His hands, scarred, calloused, moved with precision, not the careless sloppiness of workers. Amanda's voice rang out, clear and sharp. "You, step aside, now." The man froze. For a heartbeat, the entire convoy stilled. The SEALs reacted instantly, rifles snapping up, surrounding the suspect. The man raised his hands, his casual mask crumbling. But as they moved to secure him, two others bolted from the far side of the convoy. They sprinted toward the hangars, weapons flashing under the floodlights. Amanda's rifle was already up. She fired a controlled burst, striking the ground ahead of them. "Down!" she roared. The runners staggered, thrown off by her precision. The SEALs closed in, tackling them hard against the pavement. Within seconds, the night was filled with shouts, commands, and the sound of restraints clicking shut. Amanda held her ground, weapon steady, heart pounding. She hadn't flinched. Not once. When it was over, the commander approached her slowly. The captured operatives were dragged away, their equipment confiscated. The convoy was secured. The commander stopped in front of Amanda, his broad frame casting her in shadow. For a moment, he said nothing. He simply looked at her, not as a private, not as a gate guard, but as a soldier. Then, deliberately, he extended his hand. Amanda straightened, caught off guard, but clasped it firmly. The commander's grip was strong, unyielding. His voice was low, but every soldier nearby heard it. "You stood your ground when others hesitated. You saw what the rest of us missed. You reminded this base that vigilance isn't a joke. It's survival." Amanda felt heat rise in her chest, but she didn't smile. She only met his gaze and answered, "Just doing my duty, sir." The commander released her hand, then did something no one expected. He brought his hand up in a crisp, deliberate salute. To her. The silence that followed was heavier than gunfire. Soldiers and SEALs alike stood frozen, watching their commander salute a private. Amanda returned it instantly, her motion flawless, her spine unshakable. For years to come, they would talk about that moment, the night ASEAL commander saluted the gate guard who had been assigned her post as a joke. Later, alone in her bunk, Amanda opened her notebook. Her hand trembled slightly as she wrote the night's events. Not the glory, not the respect, just the truth. Pay attention. Trust your eyes. Never assume. Respect comes when you least expect it. She closed the book and exhaled slowly. For the first time, she allowed herself a small, quiet smile, because she knew this wasn't the end of her story. It was only the beginning.